In the face of an imminent and grave peril, the Dynasty Guild could not afford the luxury of uncertainty. With a profound threat looming, they orchestrated their ranks with a deliberate grace. A symphony of augmentations, fortifying strength, amplifying agility, igniting spirit, and quickening speed, enveloped the guild like a cocoon of battle readiness. Their history was their advantage, a tapestry woven through years of harmonious collaboration. The synergy forged by countless missions ensured not just survival, but the prospect of triumph. Moyu, a vigilant sentinel of his environment, swiftly signaled bystanders to clear a path. With his soul blaze at the ready, he wasted no breath, promptly unleashing its fiery torrent upon the distant marksman. The flames embraced the ranged attacker, turning him into a pyre of reckoning. Awe-inspiring were the Dynasty Guild's healers, their artistry manifest in preemptive mends that intercepted the impending assault. Yet, the soul blaze was relentless, severing through their efforts as though they were mere gossamer. The swift termination of the archer sent shockwaves rippling through the mage's psyche. Could it be that their guild, a formidable force, was on the brink of obliteration from the hand of a lone entity? Undeterred by their disbelief, Moyu seized his advantage, pivoting his focus onto the stalwart tanks. The group rallied with unyielding fervor, pummeling his seemingly invincible skill with the onslaught of the rage strike. The support systems crumbled, tank defenses shattered, and the once ironclad cohesion shattered as they succumbed to the overwhelming maelstrom of destruction. As the soul blazed methodically reduced guild members to ash, the mage stood witness to the grim spectacle. Regret nibbled at his conscience, a poignant reminder that perhaps humility should have guided his choices. The battle's resolution was now etched in stone, and Lin Moyu, an arbiter of fate, held no clemency for the Dynasty Guild. With the corpse explosion honed to lethal precision, hope had ceased to exist. Even the guild's indomitable knights, champions of unyielding vitality, met their demise under its devastating onslaught. Solitude encompassed the mage, the lone survivor ensnared by the lifeless forms of comrades who once shared his cause. As Moyu's gaze pivoted toward the dungeon's gaping maw, an inscrutable resolve emanated from him. Before crossing the threshold, a calculated command initiated the final ritual of corpse explosion. The professionals left behind convened, surveying the haunting aftermath, an arena of annihilation where naught remained. Not a soul among them was naive, each recognizing the indomitable stature of the Dynasty Guild and its enigmatic leader. Lingering amidst this charnel realm was a death sentence, a realization that drove them to unanimous accord. Retreat was the only path. An unspoken pact bound their tongues and senses, a unanimous agreement to deny any knowledge, any witness of the cataclysmic event that unfolded. 30 minutes elapsed, a half-hour of fleeting time. Emerging from the dungeon's depths, the illustrious leader of the Dynasty Guild carried a gnawing vexation. The elusiveness of the Goblin King's core had left a sour taste, tarnishing his mood. Yet, a revelation unfurled before him: the dungeon's surroundings lay devoid of life. Not a vestige remained of the guild's stalwart members, nor any stray wanderer's presence. Perturbed by this eerie vacuum, his command resonated like a clarion call, transmitting a message across the airwaves. The beacon of inquiry was sent forth, an expectant summons to the silent void, to draw forth any nearby echoes of his guild. An instinctual tremor stirred within him, an unsettling inkling that the fabric of reality had been warped. The warriors he entrusted were among the mightiest in the realm, their strength echoing for miles. The enigma lay in the absence of telltale signs, no vestiges of battle's tumult, no specter of defeat. Amidst this enigmatic tableau, analysis prevailed as he dissected the unsettling tableau. A resolute decree followed, a tactical withdrawal, an acknowledgement that the vicinity of the dungeon exuded danger, and that discretion must temper valor. An hour unfurled, a chapter of time in which Moyu and his comrades quelled the Goblin King once more. Alas, the coveted core of the king remained elusive, its glimmer hidden from sight. Bound to remain enshrouded until he set foot within the hallowed grounds of Xiajing Academy, where a skilled alchemist could forge its potential into the Goblin King's ring. Amidst the spoils of battle, Moyu unearthed the Goblin King's arcane tome, a treasure sorely needed. Its title bespoke its stature, Goblin King's magic book, a tome of bronze, adorned with wondrous attributes. A boon to spirit and physique, amplifying the mage's arcane might by a threefold percentage. Yet, its prowess was bound to the threshold of level 12 and above, a perfect fit for Moyu's arsenal, though his skeletal cohort reaped no boon from it. The wellspring of experience vaulted Moyu to level 13, a plateau where jubilation tapered. Level 14 loomed as a formidable bastion, and the summit of level 15 seemed even more elusive, the chasm between them and him yawning wider. But Moyu had cards yet unplayed, strategies uncharted. The horizon held a possibility, level 16, a perch he might just attain before the impending exams. It was not the zenith he envisioned, yet it seemed sufficient to claim a coveted ticket into the hallowed halls of Xiajing Academy. A solitary grin curved his lips as he surveyed the abandoned quarry, understanding that the footsteps of the professionals had been guided by prudence, securing their existence in the face of dire circumstances. The dawn unveiled a new chapter, a level 10 Xia Shui entering the quarry's domain. Days of relentless toil had propelled her to this juncture, where she stood poised to challenge the Shihai Mine dungeon. Her gaze was quick to alight upon the elusive figure, Lin Moyu, a necromancer whose spectral phalanx marred the landscape. Her odyssey to bridge the distance bore fruit, yet the chasm remained uncrossed. The spectacle of Moyu's solitary triumph did not perturb her. A rare elemental mage, she stood at a crossroads, her path intersecting more invitations than she could honor. Their rivalry, an ember kindled in the heat of competition, had not waned. On the contrary, it thrived, awaiting its next fiery chapter. The dungeon's duration of conquest was progressively diminishing, a testament to Moyu's burgeoning mastery over its terrain. The surge in his efficacy was undeniably attributed to the phalanx of skeletal soldiers he could now summon, a feat that rendered the summoning space precarious at 72 out of 110. His ranks swelled like a surging tide, an assemblage of 72 soldiers standing tall under his banner. The moment of inertia had passed. It was time to confront the boss, forestalling an inevitable cooldown. His assault commenced, a maelstrom of power encapsulated by the soul blaze's searing fervor. Pangs of guilt gnawed at Moyu's conscience, the act almost resembling bullying. The Goblin King, a hapless figure, was merely caught in the tumult of necessity. The act held no pleasure for him, only a pragmatic means to the end, a swift, if agonizing, progression. As the tally of kills mounted, the thrill of slaughter waned, replaced by the unyielding mandate of leveling up. The precipice of level 14 beckoned, a tantalizing vista within grasp. The sun completed its cycle, and Moyu stood resolute, ready to rekindle the onslaught. 3 more repetitions would draw this chapter to its conclusion. The pattern was etched in routine, a symphony of choreographed maneuvers. By now, the Goblin King should have grown accustomed to the rhythms of the Necromancer. Moyu ascended to level 14, the barometer pointing to 60% progress toward the subsequent tier. Beyond dungeon's confines, he bided time, awaiting his encore with the king. His assemblage of skeletal sentinels had surged by 4, attributes ascending to an impressive 2,300. Yet, Moyu's wish remained unfulfilled, the desire to amplify their capabilities through enhanced skills remained elusive, a tantalizing prospect just out of reach. Finally, fate cast Xia Shui into Moyu's orbit. Emerging from the dungeon's depths, she bore the marks of combat's grueling embrace. Her focus honed in on his progress, the revelation of his level a profound shock. Level 14, an insurmountable feat. Exhaustion dogged her party, their 2 runs barely elevating them to level 11. The disparity between their trajectories defied logic, the chasm growing ever wider. She turned away, her resolve solidifying. The flames of competition kindled as she refused to capitulate. In their shared history as classmates, she had never truly caught Moyu off guard. Yet, a rare moment awaited, an epoch of reversal. Defying cooldown's dominion, she re-entered the dungeon, Moyu a silent witness to her declaration of intent. An hour later, she exited the dungeon, many times rougher than when she went in. The mere sight of Lin Moyu spurred her to continue. A single clear just wasn't enough as she pursued new groups that would take a clearly tired level 11 elemental mage. Her competitive nature was just too much for him, not giving him the slightest opportunity to inquire about her ability to dodge the cooldown. An hour later, and he was sure she wasn't able to continue, giving him the perfect opportunity to approach her. But to his surprise, she ran off once again as she heard the call for a mage. Half an hour later, and she had finally reached level 12. Completely exhausted and not caring who knew, he broached the conversation by pointing out how hard she was pushing herself. She was so through she could barely lift a single finger. The word "why" was all it took. Xia Shui couldn't take this guy. All her life she had been number one, but the moment Lin Moyu entered her life, he began overshadowing her. For years she had been second best, but she was now determined to surpass him now that it really counted. If he had only known she was going to be so obsessed, he would have allowed her to obtain first place. It's not like it meant anything to him. Moyu wasn't her sole motivation, she had to push herself if she stood any chance of entering Xiajing Academy. She knew he understood, after all he too was gunning for the school. At her current rate, Moyu was sure she was going to come up short. It was known that you had to be level 15 to give yourself an appropriate opportunity and 16 to guarantee your entry. She really needed to start doing nightmare modes if she wanted to level up faster. Xia Shui didn't understand his insanity. What elite party would take her, a level 12 mage? Any group worth their salt were exclusively looking for level 16 to 17 professionals. She was sure if she was diligent, she would easily hit level 14, and with a bit of hard work, level 15 wouldn't be out of her reach. Moyu was done beating around the bush. He came right out and asked exactly how she was completely ignoring the dungeon cooldown. 8 in the tapestry of time, a rare moment unfurled before Xia Shui, a fleeting indulgence Moyu welcomed her to savor. Yet, his reaction defied expectation, dismantling her delight with an unexpected twist. The shroud of mystery surrounding him finally gave way to revelation, a coveted treasure akin to his protective badge, but carrying boundless value. A novice-level cooldown talisman stood at the heart of this enigma. 3 of its precious 10 uses had already been consumed by Xia Shui. The very essence of the talisman lay in its ability to truncate the cooldowns of dungeons beneath the 20th tier. With his badge and now this wondrous talisman, Moyu's understanding burgeoned, unveiling the limitless tapestry of artifacts strewn across the realm. Yet he discerned that the fabled stopwatch lay far beyond his grasp, its cost an insurmountable barrier. Confirming his assumption, Xia Shui revealed that her father's hesitance precluded its transference. Hope seemed dim, but a flicker endured. The weight of stress pressed upon Xia Shui, the prospect of exhausting all 7 remaining cooldowns within 2 days casting a shadow. Her personal cooldowns only exacerbated her turmoil, the notion of 9 more dungeon forays a daunting abyss. The aspiration to attain level 15 dwindled on the horizon, distant and unattainable. In the ebb and flow of conversation, Moyu discerned a sublime convergence. Their quandaries intertwined seamlessly. Her unlimited cooldowns aligned with his unmatched power, yet the inverse held true. A proposition sprouted, a solution to their mutual dilemmas. The offer entailed her assimilation into his party, a surefire conduit to achieve level 15. The realization struck her, she had overlooked the profound strategy. In this synergy, the potential was stark, a joint dungeon entry, where her presence would be auxiliary to Moyu's solo might. A harmonious marriage of augmented experience and reduced effort presented itself, an elixir to her predicament. However, the pact was not without its price. The embrace of his plan necessitated relinquishing her aspiration to surpass him, a poignant reckoning she now faced. When she looked up, Moyu knew he had succeeded. That burning look she always had in her eyes were gone, replaced by admiration. In exchange for him carrying her through the dungeon, the two would share her cooldown talisman. She had no problems putting her challenge on the back burner, because one day she knew she would most definitely surpass him. Now that that was decided, a weight lifted off her shoulders. She was sure her future plans were on the tracks to success. The two would enter the dungeon together in a little over 2 hours, which left her plenty of time to rest. Moyu watched over her as she finally got some sleep and a chance to recover her spirit. 2 hours later, and the team was ready for the show. As the two entered the dungeon, Moyu activated the talisman. The nightmare emblem flashed before Xia Shue's eyes as she was carried off into the dungeon. The attributes of the goblins were way beyond anything she had ever seen. She really hoped Lin Moyu knew what he was doing. If this wasn't intentional, they were essentially dead. Moyu assured her safety. All she needed to do was to remain by his side. She couldn't run away, otherwise she would never live it down. The look in his eyes told her everything she needed to know. If she hesitated, he would think she was a coward. She was going to have to stay on her toes. Never in her life had she seen a dungeon clearing technique like this. Moyu's soldiers were merely gaining aggro over all the mobs in the dungeon. She couldn't explain how they weren't taking any damage as they dashed headlong, collecting goblin after goblin as they went. She struggled to keep up, not understanding the purpose of any of this. Pulling up short, the fear was evident in her eyes. No way this was the Wolf King. He was at least twice the size of his counterpart from the normal difficulty. A single goblin was destroyed and tossed away like a ragdoll towards the Wolf King. The way he previously leveled was inefficient. With time at a premium, Moyu had to speed things up. Corpse Explosion was the perfect tool. It would allow him to take everything out in a single shot, and reduce his dungeon clear time drastically. He cast Corpse Explosion. Xia Shui watched as the dungeon monsters were wiped away and her experience shot through the roof, rising by 30% in a single go. She just couldn't believe her eyes. How is it possible that he was able to clear a dungeon like this? The boss was destroyed merely from the fallout of an attack. Her previous party had suffered for over 20 minutes to defeat this creature, and here Moyu was destroying it in under a minute. It all made sense. Moyu had been clearing nightmare mode from the very beginning. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, there was no way she would have believed it. A professional below level 20 solo clearing a nightmare difficulty dungeon. As the two sprinted towards the final boss, she realized it was more impressive than that. Inquiring if he had been clearing the nightmare difficulty from the moment he reached level 10. And just like that, they were standing in front of the Goblin King. Her previous party had taken at least an hour to reach this point, and here they were, less than 10 minutes from entering the dungeon. And just like everything else, the Goblin King was taken out in a single blow. And just as impressive, Moyu crossed the level 15 threshold. With 30% till she reached level 13, the gap between them kept expanding. Not soloing the dungeon meant he only obtained 25,000 experience instead of the usual 40,000. But the access to her talisman would more than make up for it. Moyu noticed the disappointment in her eyes as she stared at the long sword. He offered her the scepter instead. But not understanding, she only took it as a question. The Goblin King's scepter was a dream weapon for any mage under level 20. And she just couldn't bring herself to ask her father to purchase one from the trade market. He had no problems giving it to her. The scepter was essentially useless in his hands. After all, he had the Goblin King's magic book, and scepters really weren't his thing. She hadn't once seen him use that book. How much more powerful would his attacks be if he had? His stats were coming along, but they were a far cry from the attributes of his soldiers. At the moment, he still was the weakest link of his army. But the use of Corpse Explosion and Soul Blaze made him an integral member of the team. He knelt down to the Goblin King to apologize as things had changed. He was going to have to lean on the boss a little more than he thought. Xia Shui cautiously interrupted the moment, assuring him that the boss didn't understand him, so there was no need for him to talk to it. But regardless, it was something he wanted to say, and it didn't matter if the boss understood him or not. She was left wordless by his actions. Who cared about the feelings of a monster? Their sole purpose was to be killed by them. He was so weird, but watching him be so respectful was actually very cute. This was only the start of their day. They had to pack in quite a few runs, so it was time for them to leave. The moment they stepped out, Moyu put the talisman to work. And just like that, the second clear was done, followed by the third, fourth and fifth. Without lifting a finger, Xia Shui had managed to reach level 14, and they still had a day and a half before they had to return for their exam. If she could reach level 15, getting into Xiajing Academy was going to be a piece of cake. After witnessing what he was capable of, Xia Shui insisted Lin Moyu had to go after the title of champion. First off, the amount of academic points a champion gained was way higher than a normal student. Academic points were huge at the academy. And more important was the fact that champions got to enter the creation seminary. This was a first for Moyu. Xia Shui elaborated further. Her father once told her that the creation seminary was composed of the best in their country. Xiajing Academy was packed with only the most talented elites. The creation seminary took that to the next level. Its members were made up of professionals at the pinnacle of power. If Moyu could make it in, he would join the likes of Su Qianjin, the only other member from their city. She knew he had what it took to get in. What she witnessed over the last 24 hours had blown her mind. His clearing technique was revolutionizing and had reset her understanding of how things should be done. In her opinion, if Lin Moyu couldn't get in, who could? His main goal was to catch up to his sister, but beyond that, he had no problem shooting for the stars. If becoming a champion and entering the creation seminary was it, he was down. Xia Shui was the first to spot a familiar face. Gao Yang had made it to level 11. She kind of felt bad as the night class wasn't useful in the dungeon until it reached level 13. As he was, no party would touch him. But today was his lucky day. After all, he had friends that had no problems looking out for him. The big boss man was laying it on heavy, to the fool of a dynasty guild leader. To restrict access to the dungeon was the stupidest thing he ever heard. Who in their right mind thought that that was a good idea? Forget the people who you have inconvenienced. What would happen when the country and the association heard of such news? If his intent was to die, he had no right to try to drag the guild down with him. Going forward, he had no choice but to keep a low profile. As it was, there was no reason for him to do anything but wait for his exam to start. But being a stubborn fool, he insisted that something had to be done about the loss of their guild members. Even though it was none of his concern, the boss man had already sent people to investigate. Whoever took out their soldiers had to be extremely strong. He just never would have thought there would be anyone foolish enough to go up against the dynasty guild. Gao Yang's eyes widened in disbelief, a tableau of incongruity painted before him. The very adversaries who had long been the school's sworn antagonists now stood united. A precipice of astonishment stood before him, daring him to believe the improbable. This juncture bore a profound choice: proceed and risk evoking the ire of Xia Shui, or retreat from the precipice of folly. His identity was that of a prankster, a jester at the core, but the gravity of the situation was inescapable. Unveiling her intent without delay, Xia Shui extended an invitation, a lifeline through which Gao Yang could ascend. The promise was luminous. Should he align with them, his journey to level 12 before the impending exams was all but guaranteed. Gratitude welled within him, tears of appreciation brimming in his eyes. It was a moment of jubilation akin to the brightest rays breaking through stormy clouds, a proclamation that resounded as the most uplifting news since he embarked on his wasteland quest. As fortune would have it, the institution he sought demanded merely a level 12 proficiency. Time wasted not, for Gao Yang resolved to translate gratitude into unswerving loyalty. The debt he owed beckoned obedience to their every directive, a pledge that resonated with unequivocal commitment. To the east he would venture if they so commanded, and if they whispered play dead, he would embrace the role without hesitation. In such close proximity to the mirthful fool, Xia Shui's patience waned, her irritation palpable as she issued a curt order for silence. True to his word, Gao Yang snapped to attention, the symbiotic rapport between them intensifying. Yet, the hours ahead loomed, an interval he could not idle away. 10 hours was an expanse he deemed intolerable to pass idly, and so he proposed a reprieve. The call for rest reverberated, though his path diverged as he embarked on a hunt for monsters, seizing every opportunity to further his prowess. A salute and well wishes were offered to his comrade as he departed, Gao Yang's departing words a jest dipped in friendship, a wish for his companion's luck in seizing the heart of Xia Shui. A phoenix appeared, sending him charging back into the wasteland at top speed. Xia Shui didn't care. If he got hurt, the fool deserved it. Moyu knew the fool well and assured her he was only teasing. 10 hours later, the three stood in front of the dungeon. Right away, the cautious knight noticed the nightmare difficulty. Xia Shui acted as if she wasn't scared for her life when she first ran into the same situation. He was asking too many questions. All he had to do was follow along quietly at the back. And with a corpse explosion, once again, the Goblin King was eliminated. Gao Yan was way beyond surprised. The boss of a nightmare difficulty dungeon, which normally took 10 of the highest elites, was swatted away as if it was nothing more than trash. Xia Shui smugly reassured him that it was nothing special. He dropped to his knees and wrapped his arms around Moyu's leg, once again insisting that Moyu take him along whenever he cleared dungeons in the future. Xia Shui shook her head. At the very least, he could pretend to be a knight. But truthfully, what was the point in acting like a knight with boss Moyu around? As they teleported out of the dungeon, Moyu agreed to take him along in the future. After their next dungeon, he would finally hit level 16. And the other two would also reach their target levels. The three would be as ready as they could be to take on their exam. All the principals of the respective schools stood upon the top of the wall, waiting for their children to return. At long last they had reached the day before exams. Each of them knew the rumors that old Lu had 2 geniuses this year, each targeting Xiajing Academy. He proudly recited the names of his prize pupils. Regardless of how much he believed in them, he was still worried. If they couldn't reach the appropriate levels, what chances did they really have? But after all, one was the brother of Lin Moyu, and the other was the pride of the Xiao family. If those two couldn't make a miracle happen, no one could. And with that, the first student marched out of the wastelands. Sujin was a swordsman, who had managed to reach level 12. Next up was the eagle-eye archer, Wan Ning, who had soared to level 13. The heads of the different schools couldn't help but go at each other. They took so much pride in their pupils. But in the end, what truly mattered was the results in the exam. As of yet, not a single student that managed to return was above level 14. Headmaster Lu was starting to feel uneasy. His 3 students Xia Shui, Gao Yang, and Lin Moyu should have shown up by now. He prayed that the 3 would return unharmed. And to his relief, the 3 came marching across the desolation together. Their safety was the most important thing, but second to that, he wondered how the 3 had performed. Gao Yang exceeded his expectation. The Sword Shield Knight had managed to reach level 12. On the other hand, Xia Shui had become the first level 15 of the year. All the headmasters were shocked. Reaching such a milestone meant she had an 80% chance of getting into Xiajing Academy. They gave Lu all the praise that was due to him. And to their astonishment, the Necromancer Lin Moyu had gone above and beyond, and became a part of the exclusive level 16 club. Headmaster Lu was extremely proud. In order for them to have reached such levels, they had to have cleared the dungeon non-stop. And their equipment proved this very point. Gao Ying's sword and shield and Xia Shui's scepter wasn't easy to come by. The Goblin King's drop rate was known to be extremely low, bordering on impossible. The 3 had most definitely been working hard. The school had provided a bus to get everyone back safely. He ordered the kids to board, and as soon as everyone was ready, they would head back to the school. They each needed to get a good night's sleep because, bright and early, they would gather at the school and head to the examination site together. The fact that Moyu had hit 16 meant he was extremely confident. He had no doubt he could get into Xiajing Academy. But his new target was to obtain first place and grasp the opportunity to enter the Creation Seminary. The night sped by as the day filled with excitement reared its head. Moyu was fully recovered and had managed to obtain 100 skeleton soldiers, each with attributes reaching 2,500. His personal stats weren't too shabby, with strength 220, agility 220, spirit 900 plus 20, and physique 900 plus 20. He was in peak condition and ready for anything the exam could throw his way. Gao Yan was ready and waiting, shouting Moyu's name as soon as he entered the school. It was astonishing what level 16 did for his reputation. The scorn he normally received was nowhere to be seen from his classmates. The makeshift party stood together. Xia Shui encouraged them all to do their best. She was sure the two of them would meet at Xiajing Academy. Every student was handed a teleportation stone. The headmaster instructed them to break the stone or force their spirit into it when he gave them the order. But before they moved on, he wanted each of them to understand that their safety was to be prioritized before all else during the exam. And with that, they were given permission to head to the exam site. Jiangning Provincial Exam Center. The exam center was simply packed. Moyu estimated that there were over 10,000 people in attendance. And before their eyes, the trial tower sprung to life, rising from the ground before them. A transcendent light from within the tower instructed them each to please carefully listen to the rules. Sound was not allowed. Questions were not allowed, and failure to comply would be met with immediate disqualification. And to prove its point, two fools felt the need to make examples of themselves, and was forcefully teleported from the site. Moyu was just thankful that his personal fool had the sense to keep his mouth shut. Behold the trial tower, an emblem of excellence tailored to each diverse professional. Warriors of the front lines shall face rigorous battle tests, while those of the support echelon shall navigate through intricate scenarios. Once the rudimentary trials are vanquished, a realm of choices unfolds: normal, nightmare, and hell modes, each presenting unique challenges. These modes bear distinct outcomes, yielding points that crystallize one's exam performance. These points, akin to treasures within the hallowed halls of academia, outweigh even the most precious of gold coins. Furthermore, participants are to wield the tools at their disposal, barring external aids as their storage remains locked. A sacred pact binds them: abide by the rules, or face disqualification. The tower ordered them to form an orderly queue. Moyu did the math and knew if their province had this number of pupils taking the exam at the moment, there was over 1 million professionals taking the exam across their entire country. He had been hoping that the trial tower was very similar to a dungeon, and that each participant would be sent to their very own instance. The ones in charge had been forewarned of the arrival of a necromancer. All they truly knew was that he was a summoning-type mage. But beyond that, all of them hoped the new profession wouldn't disappoint. They chose to classify him as a rare mage type, and send a mage-type monster 2 levels higher than him in his direction. All Moyu knew was that the monster before him was a mage. His task was to destroy the wolf-orc mage. The light surrounding it blocked all forms of parsing. He had no idea of its level or its attributes. But none of that mattered the moment the countdown ceased. He focused all his energy into Soul Blaze. And the moment his attack landed, the creature distorted out of reality. Lin Moyu. Time taken, 0.1 second. The onlookers at the pinnacle of their professions were in complete shock, as the Necromancer instantly killed his target. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to support the original creators. Supporting their work will allow us to continue to get amazing chapters in the series. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.